Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time on this channel, you're welcome. I am A.H.P. I'm an author and I also do business. Now today's video is for that part of my channel where we talk about real life issues, and today I'm going to be sharing with you, especially those of you who are parents or carers with school age children, okay? And something that I have been seeing a lot, and as a result of it, I thought, you know what, let me share this in a video format because it will reach more parents in that regard. So again, for those of you who don't know, I am a born again Christian. I do believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. So every now and again he will lay something on my heart to share with people whom it concerns, and this time it's parents in regards to your children. Now, regularly God asks me to pray different topics, and one of the issues he asked me to pray about was abuse. And as I started praying about, abuse, he said, pray for those who have been abused. And as I started to pray about the issue of abuse, and also for the people who have been abused, I began to have dreams. And I take my dreams seriously, because I know that that's one of the ways in which God communicates with me. So I started to have dreams a few years ago, because I'm called to systems, to the different spheres of influence within the earth, right? So business, education, family, government, religion, arts and entertainment, okay, and media. So every now and again God will show me something pertaining to those areas, and it's not always a negative. Most times it's positive, but sometimes it's the things that no one wants to address, no one wants to talk about, or no one is even aware of, or the common day-to-day person is not aware of, but it affects them, or things that affects the day-to-day life of people, but there's no one to speak up for them, or or people avoid speaking up for them because of fear of losing maybe their job, losing maybe their life, losing maybe their freedom, right? And while 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 that is always the case, when you're assigned to those places, God gives you wisdom to know how to navigate those issues without putting yourself in danger. And so yeah, so that is why I share quite a bit of this. Do bear with me. I need to check something quickly. I was multitasking. So that is basically that in a nutshell, to explain. So I started seeing schools, like a lot of schools, even before. So the more I pray like about school, for schools in the neighborhood, because I'm a parent also, okay? So as I pray, I often pray about these spheres of influence, right? And pray that God's will prevails. And when I started praying for schools, praying for schools, I started seeing things that happens in school, and you know how children how children are abused, like in boarding schools, like they're neglected. What goes on in boarding schools. God began to show me the abuse that happens to children and young people in boarding schools by adults, and then also he began to show me things that happens in neighborhoods around schools, like near schools, how children are trafficked, you know, after school, and why children go missing, and I wrote a poem about it, but I feel like it's time to be plain and open, because a lot of people may not understand similes and metaphors unless they are writers, and unless they understand meanings and stuff like that, and God gives them understanding of what I have written, and they'll understand what I'm talking about, and not take it as entertainment, because it's not. It's actually a reality for you to know what to do as a parent, and as a carer if you're not a parent but you still look after a young person or a child. Okay. So I started to see a lot of that happening, and then I just continued to just pray, because some of the things that God shows us, we don't always say it like straight away, but we allow him to deal with it as it deems fit, and then when he gives us the permission to speak on the matter, we do speak on the matter. So the last time, it was this month, a couple of weeks ago, God began to tell me again, like, to pray for people who have been abused, and so I've been praying about it, and I've shared on the topic of abuse already on this channel, so you can go and watch that video, and what abuse is, and so as I prayed about it, God showed me Kenya. Now recently something happened in Kenya, but apparently it's not the first time that it has happened in Kenya. But in the dream I literally saw a person who represented a teacher beating this child in the dream. I saw like basically open vision, and I saw this person and they were beating this child and hitting the child even like the back of their head, and just hitting the child, right, with a stick. And then I saw like other people, parents, gathered, and they're just watching this person beat this child. And then there was like an office space where there was like a reception. There was, the person was sitting there, and these parents, some of them were complaining or talking to the person, right, at the reception. And okay, I just got a message. And so because of that, now I walked up to them, to the person who was beating this child, and I said, stop beating the child, you end up killing the child. And then they stopped beating the child, and then they turned and they started talking to, you know, the person in the reception space, right? And I walked up also to this office, and it looked like it looked like a cell basically. Like it was glass covered, right? And we were just talking, but it was like a complaining. And then I woke up, and when I woke up, because I knew who the person was, I knew it was something serious. And it's Timothy Kimani. For those of you who watch Kenyan comedy, you would most likely know who Timothy Kimani is. That's his real name, but his stage name is Blessed Njugush, right? So I saw him. He was the one doing that, right? So I knew that it's something very important that God was sharing. So I asked God, like, God, why did you show me that? Like, what is that about? And he said, that's Kenya. And so because I'm on social media and I follow Timothy Kimani, I saw like he posted something to do with school, what had recently transpired in Kenya. A school that has been burnt, and children, some of them died, some of them are missing and no one knows where they are, and or they're not telling them where they are. And so I knew that that was something to do with that. And so I continued to pray about it, and like, you know, that God would move, that justice would prevail. But I felt like I should also share this in a video format so that parents really understand the the um, the magnitude of what happens in schools. So apart from that scene, the scene changed, and I was literally walking through the streets of Kenya and the markets in Kenya. I was walking through and I saw like the slums, like what happens in those places. And then I went like into boarding schools in the dream and saw really what happens to children in those boarding schools. And you know, some of them had messed up sheets, dirty sheets. No one was telling them to wash them. No one was looking after them in the way that they should, or in the way that parents think that they are looked after in school. No one was paying attention to them, and they slept in dirty beds, like feces in beds, like when they've messed up their beds and wheeze on their beds and all of that. Like no one was caring about them. So I knew that that was to do with neglect. That was to do with physical abuse, but also neglect, which is also a form of abuse. And then I woke up from that, and a few days later I have the same type of dream again, but this time I'm in another school. And this time I'm in another school, and I walked up to the teacher. I walked up to someone who is meant to be a teacher, and I saw myself like sitting on their lap, and you know, and then that person who's the teacher insinuated, like, you know, let me put this here, like he was pointing on my body and basically wanted to do a sexual act. And I said no. And like when he said that, immediately the door opened. The door opened, and somebody else was behind, outside when the door opened, and they dashed a razor blade, and they were like, you're gonna die. And what's it called? And I knew I had been caught, like in my assignment, like I knew I was because I wanted to find out who this person is, like in the dream. It's not that I was trying to seduce the teacher, but I wanted to find out what they actually do. And so this other teacher was basically covering them, and then they had students lined up. All these set of students had been lined up outside, and this happens in African schools because I used to be in Uganda, and this happens. Uganda is one of the schools that, you know, one of the countries that this happens in as well. And these students had been lined up, and then they had prefects, right? And these prefects will go up, and I saw this in the dream, but I know that this happens in real life, you know, because I've experienced it myself when I was younger. And this these prefects were going up to the children's faces and like literally yelling at them, right? Yelling at them, and these children were like looking down, like feeling all down and all of that. And that's when I knew that that was emotional abuse. And I woke up. And I woke up. And I knew from that, you know, sexual abuse by teachers to pupils, yeah, is actually real. Okay. Emotional abuse from teachers onto children and young people is actually real. But also corporate punishment of children and young people is also real, and that is something that is abuse, like to the level that they do it in is abusive. And they do that because teachers, what schools do is, especially in Africa, is that they delegate their authority over to other students, the prefects, the head girl, the head boy, and all the other prefects. They delegate, the teachers, the school delegates the authority to them, right? And where they talk to these young people and children anyhow, and they treat them anyhow, and they beat them, punish them, do all kinds of punishment on them, and it's not right. And also, you know, so that's what happens. And you know, and the whole point of this video is to not just make you aware that those things happen, because some of you parents know that these things happen and you allow it to happen because you go into school, like day school, and they'll tell you that your child has been misbehaving and your child has been beaten, and you don't do anything about it. You beat your child even more on top of that. And what's it called, boarding school, you know that happens. And but you may not know some of the other things that happen, which happens, you know, like the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, and the impact of it on your children's lives. Like, it's detrimental, you know, it's detrimental. And so it's very important that you know that these things happen and that you speak up. You speak up. It's time that parents speak up, that so that policies are changed. It's time parents speak up for their children, so that your children don't just end up dying because maybe in that school, maybe it's a child or an older child who lit up the school because they're frustrated with the school. Maybe they are, you know, tired of going to school. They don't want to go to to school, you know. Or there are all reasons as to why. And some of these missing children, maybe they have been trafficked. Maybe they have. And, you know, and the what's it called? The authorities will not come and they will not tell you. They'll just say, you know, they've just gone missing, because they know that you wouldn't press to know what happened to those children who are missing, who weren't in the fire, who are missing. They know that eventually you just get over it, and that's how they get away with it. That's how they get away with continuing to do those things, because whether you want to believe it or you don't want to believe it, whether you know it or you don't, some of these people in authority are actually involved in injustice that happens to young people and children. You know, in sex trafficking, not just sex trafficking, but also in labor, trafficking for labor, you know, child labor, where they send these children, when they traffic them, they send them to places, to factories to work and do all kinds of jobs, and they get money paid from organizations who take these children and use them to work. Some of them are a lot more grievous than that. They put them in brothels, you know, as sex workers, and they abuse them, for lack of a better word. And so you wouldn't know until, you know, some of them, they die without their families knowing where they have been, their whereabouts and all of that. And children who go missing, like after school, 99.9% of the time is because they've been trafficked. 99.9% of the time is because they've been trafficked. And again, I've shared on human trafficking on this channel already. So parents, you need to know who hangs around your child, who hangs around your child, who talks to your child, who does what to your child. You need to know. Like, you need to know. And when things happen to your children in school, speak up for your child. Go to the school and speak up, and let the school be accountable. If it's a teacher who has done something to your child, let that teacher be accountable. Let that teacher be held accountable. If it's a prefect or a head girl or a head boy who has done something to your child or your children, let that student be accountable. Let them be held accountable. But don't allow teachers, workers in schools, and also other peers who've been given authority by a school to talk to your children anyhow, and to treat your children anyhow, in an abusive manner, in a manner that puts them in their health in danger or their life in danger. Okay, for example, I had issues with one of my children, and I had to go to the school and ask the teacher, you know, like, what happened? What happened? You know, this happened during your lesson, yeah? One of my children happened to be hurt during PE. And as a procedure, as policy, the school, the class teacher or the teaching assistant or whoever the adult is, whether it's a supply teacher or a permanent teacher, is supposed to have written an accident report to say this happened to your child, this and this is the treatment that we gave to your child. You know, first aid, right? Offer first aid. What happened exactly? Where on their body it happened? They didn't tell. They didn't. They didn't put the accident report in his in one of my children's bag, right? And and my child came picked my child from school, and started having a conversation, and then my child ended up telling me, you know, what happened in class during PE, and I said, you know, did the teacher see what happened? And my child said, yeah, but they were there and they didn't do anything. I said, did they do first aid on you? He said, no, they didn't do first aid on me. And so I said, okay, no problem. The whole day, my child was in pain because of being hit with a ball by another child during PE. And, you know, I went up to the school. When I dropped my child in class, I made sure after school, when I went to pick up my child from school, when I dropped him in the morning to his class, I spoke to the teacher. I said, listen, my child said this happened to them during school, in school, right? And when I picked him up from school, I checked his bag. There is no accident report. I haven't been sent an email explaining what happened during PE to my child. I didn't get any phone call from the school saying what happened to my child during his lesson, and then they said, well, I wasn't in that class. I don't know what happened. I'm going to tell ask them what happened. And I said to them, I need I need an accident report at the end of the day, okay? Because I need that as evidence. And, you know, when it happens, even if my child has not spoken to the teacher, the fact that he was in class, the teacher or the teaching assistant should have seen what happened, should have put that down. It doesn't matter that my child didn't speak, okay? They should know. They should be watching, okay? Because at the end of the day, you are responsible for my child when they're at school. They were like, oh, okay, yeah, we understand, but, you know, your child has to speak up. And then they were trying to say, oh, you know, they said to my child that he has to speak up. And I said to my son, you know, make sure you say when something happens to you. But I said, nevertheless, as a teacher, you are responsible. The teachers and the teaching assistant, you are responsible. You are supposed to know what happened in class, and you are supposed to let me know, because now, if my child didn't tell me what happened, the whole day he would have been in pain, the whole night. I don't even know how to treat him, and I'll send him go to the hospital with him, and I wouldn't have explanation to give to the doctors, and they'll assume that I'm the one who inflicted that pain on my child, right? Not knowing it happened in school, and there's no evidence. So they said, well, they'll speak to the class teacher about it. At the end of the day, I looked again in the bag. There was no accident report that I asked for. No file, no nothing. And then I said to them, I went up to them, I said, listen, when I got home, the following day after school, I said, listen, I expected a accident report or email stating the accident that happened, what was done. I haven't received any of that. I didn't receive any phone call, okay, pertaining to what happened to my child during PE in his class. No one has told me anything. Okay. Oh, we don't know. Um, we don't know what happened. You know, we have 30 something children. I said, listen, I don't care how many children you have in your class. The fact that when something happens to my child while they are in your care, I expect you to be responsible. I expect you to look at him and be paying attention on my child. I expect a report. I expect a phone call. I expect an email so that I know how to treat my child after school. Because if um if I'm to take my child to the hospital now, or even to see a GP, they'll assume that it's me who has inflicted that on my child. They won't be explaining to me, or that they understand that there are 30 children in your class. They'll hold me accountable as a parent. Therefore, I hold you as teachers accountable. It happened in class, during lesson. You're supposed to know. You're supposed to be aware. Your teaching assistants are supposed to be aware. If the class teacher is not looking at the children, they're doing something else with another child, right? Paying attention to another child. They are supposed to be watching. Okay? They are supposed to know. And they are supposed to offer first aid. Okay? Oh, their excuse was, oh, well, we'll try as much as possible. Your child needs to talk, when it happens. I said, well, he needs to talk, but you are also held accountable, because at the end of the day, he was in your class. You're supposed to be watching him, and that's what I expect. And I had to be honest with them. I said, listen, when it comes to accidents that happen and you haven't recorded it, social services won't care. When I take him to the hospital and explain to the doctors what happened, they'll assume that it's me, and then social services will be involved. And when social services get involved, okay, those are children's services. For those of you who don't know who social services are, they work with families of abused children, right? Or children in risk of abuse. Okay? So because of that, anything that happens and you don't have evidence of, they assume that it's you, the parent, until proven innocent. Okay? And so what's it called? So I said to them, listen, when I take him now, they'll assume that it's me. They'll get social workers involved. And when social workers get involved, they don't care they're not looking at me with the eyes of, oh, it's not you, or we understand. No. They're holding me accountable, right? And they don't care about 30 children in your class. They'll not care about having 30 children in your class. There is consequence, okay? And I don't want to be facing that consequence for something that I didn't do. So make sure whenever there's an accident that happens in school, make sure that you write me an email, an accident report, or a phone call explaining to me, or at the end of the day, speak to me and put it in writing. Okay, so that I know what to do when I get home with my child, and also when I have to take him to the hospital, I know exactly what to tell the doctor. And if the social workers are involved, I know exactly there's evidence of what happened. Oh, okay. I said, and I had to be honest with them. I said, if he had told me before we left the school playground on that day, I would not have taken him home until you wrote me that you wrote me that accident form. I would not have taken him home. And that's something that you have to let them be aware of, that you won't just back down at their excuses, at their negligence. Accidents happen, but somebody has to be accountable. And if they don't take accountability for fear of losing their job, you, the parent, have to be to take action and make them accountable. So number one, you know how to look after your children after school, and also evidence in case of anything, accusation. You see, in case of a further treatment that needs to happen, in case of a long-lasting health impact on your child or children, or even death. You see, so you have to, and so I'm just sharing this in this video to make you aware, and also to let you know that you have to speak up. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of head teachers. Don't be afraid of class teachers. Don't be afraid of teaching assistants. Don't be afraid of workers. Don't be afraid of doctors and social services. Don't be afraid of even government. Because schools only implement what government tells them to implement. And the government is not always innocent. Some of the government officials are involved in the abuse of your children. Some of the government officials are responsible for what happens to your children, especially in school. Not some of what happens. All of what happens to your children in school is down to policies that has been written by the government. And so if you don't know policies that govern your school, you need to know. You need to know the medication policy, the health and safety policy, you need to know the safeguarding policy, you need to know the teaching curriculum, the curriculum policy. You need to understand the class, racial, the child and racial, class policy. Because if you're supposed to have only 30 children in your class, and there's supposed to be 2 of you, a teacher and a teaching assistant, guess what? If they have even 31 children in that class, they have breached. They have breached that policy. They have put that child, all those children, at risk. Because now their attention is divided. If you leave the teaching assistant in the class by themselves with all those children, right, all 30 children, guess what? You have breached. During class time, you have breached the policy. Both of you, you're supposed to, so that you are aware of what is going on in the class. While you're teaching, the teaching assistant should be helping and also being aware of what's going on in your class. Teaching assistants serve as a witness. Same way you serve as a witness for them, for the sake of the children. The first aider serves also as a health professional to treat before the child goes off home and goes to the hospital, or the parent is called and the child is in hospital. The first aiders in the school serve as, to minimize the risk, as a health professional. You see, if it's a minor injury, but they'll offer quick treatment, but they're still supposed to let you, the parent, know. And they're supposed to write as a witness that they treated the child, what they gave the child. You see, And now because of that, yesterday when I picked up my child from school, although the accident happened at home, when he went to school, he was complaining about his eyes. They ended up taking him to the what's it called? To the first aider, and got his eyes washed with an eye wash, and that cleared his eyes and stopped the hurt that he was experiencing in his eyes. Because what happened at home, he sprayed his eyes. He sprayed his eyes accidentally. Sprayed his eyes with his body spray, and he told me about it. And I told him, what wash your eyes. And I cleared his eyes, washed his eyes for him. But obviously, it's just at home. It was just water. I thought it would subside. It didn't subside. So now I booked. What's it called? When they wrote me the report, I explained to them, like, yes, it happened at home. It's an accident that happened at home. But I washed his eyes with water and wanted it to subside. Waited for it to subside. However, I've also booked him at opticians because it might not just be from that accident, because he's due for optician's appointment for eye checkup. So now tomorrow, I have an appointment for my son to go and get checked, his eyes to get checked again. So that's how you're supposed to work with the school, and the school with you as parents. But don't take it lightly. Your silence, your children pay for your silence. There's a consequence to your silence, and your children experience the consequence of it, unfortunately, if you're silent. If you're silent, no change is made. If you're silent, your child or children will continue to experience that which they're not supposed to. They'll continue to be treated. I don't care, even if it's not the teacher who has done it and it's another child. You also, even if it's another child who's involved, right? You go and you explain to the school. And the school are supposed to speak to the child and the child's parents, so that that child stops the behavior. Whether it's bullying, whether it's distracting in class, whether it's rough playing during playtime or dinner times, any behavior that your child doesn't like and puts your child's life or health at risk, you're supposed to address it. You're supposed to address it. Okay? But that is it, guys. I just wanted to let you know. So, talk to school, talk to the school board, talk to social services if you need to, speak to the doctors if you need to. Don't take no for an answer. Address it. Speak to your children. Find out what is going on in their school. And for those of you who send your children in boarding school, don't send your children to boarding school when they don't know how to look after themselves, when they don't know how to wash their clothes, when they don't know how to clean their beds, when they don't know how to clean after themselves, when they're not toilet trained or potty trained, or they haven't stopped bedwetting and all of those kind of things. Don't send them to school and expect school to look after them in that regard. They don't. They'll just tell your child to do it for themselves, but they won't do it to the standard that they're supposed to. Okay? They're not going to be waking your child up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet. So your child will keep weeing all over their beds, messing up their beds, and then they'll get punished for it. they'll get beaten for it. They don't know how to wash their clothes. Their clothes are messy. Their hair is not cut. They don't know how to cut their nails. They'll get beaten for it. Something that they should know that it's development. It's development milestones. So it's things like that. Some children don't know yet how to cut their nails. Some children don't know how to cut their hair. How do you expect a child to have their hair cut? What's it called? And some children don't know how to brush their hair properly yet. If you don't teach your child to brush their hair properly, they won't know how to brush their hair properly. And when they go to boarding school and their hair, their uniform, their shoes are messed up, it's them. They're getting beaten for it. When they are at the age where they're not able to. Like one of my children, he's 7 years old, I still have to, what's it called, cut his nails for him. He doesn't know how to cut his nails. I still have to, cut his hair. And after cutting his hair, I still have to wash his hair. He tries to wash his hair, but he won't wash it to the level that, you know, he's supposed to, you know. So I make sure that I wash him. I wash his hair. He's learning how to bath, yes, but once in a while, during the week, at least twice in the week, I make sure that I scrub him down. Make sure that I remind him, like, you know, you need to wash yourself properly. You need to put soap on your you know, your sponge to or your body brush, you know, to wash yourself. I still have to make sure that he brushes his teeth. Remind him, brush your teeth every morning. Brush your teeth, wash your face. Otherwise, he won't do that. He'll tell you he's forgotten. So, you're sending your child to boarding school. They won't know. They'll just wake up. They'll go wash. You know, and then they'll get beaten. Their face is not washed. Their face is not, or they've washed themselves. They haven't creamed themselves. They'll get beaten. They've lost their books, or they've lost their pen. Pens and pencils, or you didn't even give it to them enough, rulers and all of that equipment for school. They'll get beaten, but they shouldn't be, because it's not their responsibility, it's your responsibility as a parent. When the child says that they've lost it, any teacher with common sense, yeah, should call the parents. If it's a boarding school, call the parents, let the parents know, okay, you know, or tell the child to speak to the parents. I know they don't have school phones or whatever, but you have visiting days. Some parents, some of you parents don't even visit your children during visiting days, and that's a whole issue as well. So you're not able to give your children what they're missing for that academic term. You see, for that, you put them in boarding school once, until they come back from school, you haven't visited them. You haven't visited them. You haven't checked on them to find out what is going on. You know, what they've lost, what they need. You know, people take people's things in boarding school. You know, you have your slippers, you have your shoes. They'll take it. They'll wear it. You'll get beaten because you don't have slippers, because you don't have a basin to wash yourself, because you don't have a jerrycan to fetch water, to wash yourself, to wash your clothes. They'll take your clothes, they'll steal your clothes as well. you know, they'll steal your uniform as well. So you won't have a uniform to wear. And all of that. And you get beaten for not having a uniform. You see, instead of addressing the issue. So, parents, be aware of these things. And do the needful. But that is it, guys. I shall leave you here. If you have any comments, feel free. Any inappropriate comments will just be deleted. If YouTube ends up deleting this before you have watched it, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's to make you aware so you know exactly what to do. So you don't just see injustice happening to your children and just have it brushed under the carpet. You know, speak up. If you don't speak up, they won't change the policies. If you don't speak up, they won't be held accountable. If you don't speak up, it's your children that will suffer. That's what that's basically what's happened. They'll get abused physically, emotionally, sexually, and neglected. So make sure you know what is going on, and beyond knowing what is going on, you speak up for your children. You speak up for the young people. You speak up and hold the people who are responsible accountable for their actions or for their lack of actions. And that is it, guys. I shall see you all in the next video. Bye.